there a point where we tell Kenny that he didn't actually play in the game?
You can't
I'm
tell
No,
me
just
that.
wondering.
You saw me in the
uh-uh.
tunnel, James. Stop playing with me.
Just
You saw
live
me in
that
the
dream.
tunnel, Debo and Trent. You know what I'm saying? We was getting hyped up. And I was in the linebacker huddle too.
I saw you on the sidewalk, walking down the side.
You're listening to D-Lo and KC on KIFM West Sacramento, 98.5 FM KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, always live on the free Odyssey app, live on 1320 TV, and live with our man, James Ham of The Insider, our Kings Insider, of course. Kings take on some version of the Memphis Grizzlies coming up here in a couple hours. We'll get to that game and whoever the hell is on the floor for them. But let's start with this. James, Kings have won 3 straight. Saturday was a real, starter heavy game. We're seeing these just top tier performances from Harrison Barnes. Kevin Huerter's continuing this little run he's going on. What happened? Why has there been such a vibe shift with this team in recent games?
Yeah, it's definitely a strange one. So we talked about it earlier, Kyle and I, and look, we get to the 41 game mark, and the Kings have a 3-day weekend, which is weird. I'm not quite sure why they had a 3-day weekend right then, right at the midway point in the season. And I kind of feel like the way that the first half of the season went was very much focused on developing Keegan Murray, and really almost to, I don't want to say to the detriment of the other of some of the other players, but it was just a plan. Like in order for this team to be great down the road, they're going to need Keegan Murray to continue to take these gigantic leaps. There will come a time when, it's okay for Harrison Barnes to average 10 points a game and for Kevin Herter to take a step back, but that's not now. That's years down the road, if at all, for Herter. I mean, just depends on how long he's part of the starting five. But what the feeling I got from this first half was that the focus so much became on, your two centerpieces, which are Fox and Sabonis, but also like trying to get Keegan Murray to take these leaps. And by the time we get halfway through the season, I think he did. He's taken a lot of huge steps forward. But at the same time, I kind of feel like Herter and Barnes quietly just sunk away. And since they weren't any focal point, or they weren't part of like the grand scheme that is the Kings development offense, they just again became lesser and lesser of what they thought they were supposed to be doing. They thought that they were supposed to take a step back, that they were supposed to allow this thing to happen. But I think, it's one thing to like sacrifice a little bit of yourself. It's a whole other thing to lose yourself. And I think that that's what they both did. And, Malik Monk, we can just throw him in here because Malik Monk doesn't care. He doesn't abide by any rules. He is the wild card. He is chaos when it comes to the Sacramento Kings. He's his own entity. And so that's why I feel like he wasn't affected by what was happening, but the other two guys were. And slowly Kevin Herter woke up, and then out of nowhere, it's like, okay, we probably should unleash Harrison Barnes. And to go from 2 shots in one game to 20 in the next, and then 24 in the game after that, it just doesn't make any sense. But it does if you look at it happen exactly after the midway point in the season, where it's like, okay, like, look, we gave this to half the season of development time. Now it's time to go, like, put the pedal to the metal. Now it's time to go win, and we need you guys to be more of who you have been in the past and forget everything that we've been doing in the first half. And now I think the hope is that you have Keegan Murray developed further, and then these other two can start playing to their ability. And next thing you know, the Kings start to magically look like they did last year with just a better player in Keegan Murray.
So one of the things that we're trying to figure out here, James, is like, and I guess we'll never really know. Like you did a great job of breaking it down, but like, how does this even happen? Is it a conversation? Is it a one-on-one conversation? Is it the team? Is it a team players only meeting? Like, it feels like some type of air was cleared over that time when they were off. And is it that simple, or is it literally just rest? Or did Harrison and Kevin Herter come up with these things on their own? I'm still trying to figure out how we got to this point, because it looks like a completely different team. Completely different team.
No, I totally get what you're saying, but I will tell you that if you go back and look at the front half of the season, so many of the plays that Kevin Herter was running, the DHOs off the top screen from Sabonis, so many of those went to Keegan Murray in the first half, and a lot of the plays that Keegan Murray, basically Harrison Barnes is playing the role of Keegan Murray. All Keegan Murray did last season, for the most part, is stand in the corner, right, and wait for the wide open shot. Now, he built some confidence up as the season went on and started, bringing his game out more towards the top of the key. And like we had some instances, but realistically, this is kind of who Keegan was last year, is what Harrison has been doing. And I think Harrison just took the role too seriously, like the role of being a good vet who has to sacrifice. And it just, again, it doesn't happen in one game or two games. It happens over the course of a month and sometimes two. And then by the time we get to game 41, he had become such a shell of himself on the court on the offensive end that, maybe that 3 days they did have like a big conversation, but it's not something that we've heard about. Like there is some sort of, whatever. Malik Monk joked around after the game last week that, like, oh yeah, we practice 3 hours a day or something trying to get this right. And I'm not quite sure if there was like a full-fledged like come into Jesus moment with this team where they're like, hey, we're just not good enough right now. But what I do know is that they've redistributed some of the opportunity. And that's a good thing because Harrison Barnes is still a ball player, and Kevin Herter can really help this team if he's given the proper incentive. And for me, some players, the proper incentive is to give them more shots, is to give them more opportunity to do what they are best at, because then they start rewarding you by giving you some of the other things that you need from them. Kevin Herter over the last, maybe 2 weeks, rebound numbers are up, assist numbers are up. He's blocking shots. He's getting steals. Like his engagement in the game has completely changed. And I think part of it was Kevin got in his own head early in the season. But I think the other part is you just keep telling these guys, like, look, you can't just be a 3-point shooter on this team. You have to do more. And I think it finally clicked with him. And then now we're starting to see it click with Harrison. I think it's interesting that, Harrison Barnes starts scoring and next thing you know, he starts rebounding. We're looking at a player who was at like 1, 2, 3 rebounds a game for a good portion of the season. All of a sudden he's got a 4 in there. He's got a 6 in there. You're like, okay, wait a sec. He is taking these strides forward. So I think it's a really interesting way that this season is played out, but I want to see what the end product is. What do you look like what do you look like game 60? What do you look like at game 82? What do you look like in the playoffs? And I think all of this is building up to that. This team can't progress unless they get Keegan Murray to progress greatly. And again, the last 2 games, he's defensive player of the game. That it just doesn't happen overnight, right? That's a lot of work that was put into that kid and a lot of work that he's done to get better. And that's part of the development of a young player, especially a top 4 pick.
James, are they literally like grooming Keegan Murray into the player that they want him to be on the defensive end? Like, was this a big part of what he was in college? Was this a big part of why they drafted him? Or is this something that they started to see last year and thought, with the right work, we could turn this kid into the defending, 3 and D, for lack of a better term, wing that we have desperately wanted in this organization for a decade and some change?
Yeah, you know what? Like, look, I think I had someone tell me last year that both of the Murray twins they looked at as very, very young bodies. Like they were late bloomers, and there was a lot of molding you could do with him physically. I don't think anyone thought, like, coming out of college, if you thought he was going to be a plus defender, I think you're crazy. Like, watching him in college, watching the role that he had. I told you guys when they drafted him, the two things that won't translate most likely are his shot blocking and his rebounding. He's not going to average 8.5 boards a game. He can average 6 or 7, but he's not going to average 8.5 a game, and he's not going to be anywhere near 1.8 blocks per game. And what we saw during this offseason is that he worked on his body so much that in a lot of ways he looks like a different player out there. He moves differently. He's even made the point that, he personally believes that he's just a much better athlete. And I don't want to say that no one saw that coming, but it's very rare that a player just becomes a better athlete, but you can see it. You can see it on the court. It plays out. I mean, he's out there defending Luka Doncic, and sure, Luka dropped 73 the night before and probably, has some tendonitis in his wrist and his elbow from shooting too much. But he still, like, he got in the way. He defended him without fouling out. He kept him at, I don't know what it was, 26 points, 28 points.
He took a lot
And
of shots to get that too.
yeah, and when a player scores 73 one night and barely clears 100 combined between that night and the next night, I think he did a pretty good job. I mean, look at his shooting percentages, and again, if Kyrie's not there, the only way they're going to beat you is for him to go crazy. So anyway, I think this is like how you set your franchise up. You spend a lot of time developing. I think spending time with De'Aaron Fox all summer, having him, defend Fox is one of the most difficult things in the league. But now you see how it translates. You see that he's able to defend a variety of defenders. When he came into the league, like, he was more 4 than he was 3, right? And now he can defend ones and twos. And that's just not something that I think any of us thought he could do. Certainly not me. But now I look at him and go, okay, I don't know if you're going to be an all league defender, but you certainly can be a plus defender. And you certainly can be a first or second best defender on a team, which I think he already is. But it sure would help if they had like a true, just pure defender guy that would take some of the stress off of him and the other guys. But like, the progress is happening. We're seeing it. I mean, he's gone from 12 points a game as a rookie. I know everyone's so excited about his rookie season. He averaged 12 points a game. Like, that's really not all that much. And then for him to take this leap to 16, I don't think he's done. I think he'll keep going. I think he'll be closer to 17 and a half or 18 by the end of the season. And we're seeing the process of growing a young player while being on a winning team and trying to achieve 2 goals at one time, bringing a player along and having him fit into what you're doing as you're trying to be great. So yeah, really interesting to see how the progress is going so far.
So this is something that we were trying to figure out and what we thought might be best for this team moving forward. The way Harrison's playing now, the way Kevin Huerter's playing now, is this real? Is this something that Monty McNair can look at and say, no, we figured some things out. We've readjusted roles and all this other stuff. And this is how these guys are probably going to play moving forward. And we don't need to make a deal. Or, damn, Damien just blinded me for a second. This guy, whew, I got distracted. I'm just trying to do a radio show and I got blinded by the guy's 1,400 carat chain he's got over there.
Okay.
But you can check
now I gotta
we can run it back. You
up.
can see people in the chat saw it too. It just got crazy for a second.
Nobody saw that.
Run it back. Watch it. You'll see it. But is this a situation now where Monty McNair's like, well, maybe we just stand pat because we got these guys on the same page now, and we don't necessarily need to make a big game-changing deal.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be the most difficult decision. Like, I'll be honest. I was looking through different trade options today and seeing if there is a way you can get a deal done without including Harrison Barnes or Kevin Huerter. And I didn't think I'd be doing that, like 2 weeks ago. But like, things change quickly in the NBA. And like, look, Harrison Barnes is a valuable player. Like, we've talked about this so many times that, like, my personal belief was that you made him the 5th option of the starters and realistically the 6th option because you have Malik Monk coming off the bench and getting so many opportunities. And Harrison Barnes still has a lot to give. You can see the shooting numbers hadn't changed at all. He's still shooting 48% from the field, shooting 41% from three. He just wasn't getting the opportunity. And I guess you could say the more that you shoot, sometimes your percentages come down. But I'd also say that sometimes you need more shots just to get in rhythm. And I think it's interesting the way that this has worked out. But you kind of have to let this thing grow organically and see how it all this is not the same team. The same 7 or 8 players are playing, but it's just not the same team. And that's okay because that's the NBA. Very rarely do you come back from an off season, even if you have the same group, and see the exact same thing the next season. And this is just like the twist and turns that we've seen this season take. And look, I think it makes it really difficult for Monty because once again, he didn't pull off the big trade 2 weeks ago. And now you're looking at a team that might find a rhythm. You know what happens if this team rattles off 6, 7 in a row? And you don't want to mess with that, right? Yeah. Or do you? I mean, this should always be about the long term. And that's why I think giving a longer leash to Keegan Murray early in the season, it's not about today. It's about today and tomorrow and the next day. And that's how you have to think when you're a GM or when you're a head coach. And that's how you have to think when you're building a program, not just trying to put a team on the court that can win right now without any questions.
Real quick, I think maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment or whatever. I don't think I'm making a move now because I don't know if there's a guy out there worth it. I'll put it to you like this. If Kuzma's on the table, yes, I'll make a move for Kuzma. I'm a little more bullish on Levine than others. I just got to see what that deal looks like a little bit.
No, I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, I'd have to see but outside of those two, like I don't know if there's a deal out there that makes me say, hey, break this whole thing up or whatever. So because of that, I think I'd just kind of stand pat because they're also not awful as is. They're inconsistent, or at least they have been this year. But even with that inconsistency, it finds them 8 games over 500 and 5th in the West.
Yeah, it's confusing because 3 games ago, they were 5 games over 500 and 7th seed, and everybody was really concerned. Mm-hmm. And then 4 games before that, they were 9 games over 500, and everyone was celebrating because it looked like they're right back on their path. Look, I don't think we should be a prisoner of the moment with this team. I think if anything, this season has shown you that this team is consistently inconsistent, and you need to figure out why that is. And sometimes that means you need to change pieces. And I don't mean all the pieces, but I certainly, this has always been about building something for the future, for, a sustained playoff run, 6 to 8 year playoff run. You don't change your mind because 3 games into the first 44, that the last 3 games, all of a sudden you started playing really well. You got to remember the same team that lost 4 in a row just a week ago. And so until they prove that that's not who they are and this is who they are, and they show you that prolonged stretch where, they don't have to win every game, but they need to show you that, they can win on this road trip. They can go 5-2 or, 6-1, that they can, fight through some tough opponents that you didn't think they could. But I'm not ready to change the long-term prognosis of this team because they have a 3-game win streak in January.
Yeah, it's that don't get too high, don't get too low on this team. But I think one thing that we could watch over the course, and really it's a week from Thursday, right? The trade deadline's a week from Thursday.
And that's why I kind of chuckle because I don't think you're wrong, but you've got a decision to make.
Well, what I mean is, no, yeah, you do have it
out.
Yeah, you do, but I think you can base it on what we're seeing right now because James, Casey brought this question you a minute ago. It was something we were talking about earlier. Is if you're Monty McNair, you're this front office, and you're watching what's happening on the floor right now, particularly with Harrison Barnes, and you see the run that Kyle Kuzma, that Kevin Huerter is on, knowing they'll probably be a little bit more up and down for Kyle Kuzma. For Kevin Huerter during the season. If you can answer the question, like, why is this happening? Why is this happening right now? And you can point to a discussion, a conversation, a practice, a meeting, a moment, and go, well, everything clicked for us in this moment during that stretch where we played one game in 7 days. If you're Monty McNair and you're watching these games wondering, why is this happening now? Then you're probably not buying it. You're probably not buying what you're seeing from Harrison Barnes or the starters collectively. But if you can point to a specific moment, and I'm with you in that, I believe that they can, be it a grand moment or just a quiet conversation before or after practice, during practice, where everything seemed to click, that I think could go a long way in determining what the Sacramento Kings do over the next 9 days, 10 days, whatever it is.
Well, I would say too, I mean, while Kevin
That would have
Huerter
made
is
a lot more sense if I hadn't said Kyle Kuzma 3 times when I was trying
Yeah.
to say Kevin Huerter. Sorry, James.
No, it's okay. Yeah, like I think the problem that you have is that players will tell you who they are, right? You just have to watch. You just have to wait for it. You have to keep your memory in the right spot, right? You can't just get all in and excited when you see something that's great, because what you have to know is that eventually you could get right back to the point where you were before. Like, there is usually a regression to the mean. There's also a way that a player who has averaged 15 points a game a bunch of years in a row and who's averaging 10.6 will eventually get back to 15 points a game, because unless he just went and got old out of nowhere or got put in a completely different situation than he's used to, that's probably who he is. He is that player until his body says he's not that player anymore, right? And so with why I say that is, it doesn't matter like how crass it sounds, but it doesn't matter that Harrison Barnes just rattled off like, 95 points or whatever it was, 93 points over a handful of games. It doesn't really, because you still know who he is. You still have an idea of his limitations. You still know that he's not long enough and athletic enough to defend both the 3 and the 4 at the level that you need him to. So he can still be part of your program, but you still need that player. And I would say the same thing about Kevin Huerter. It doesn't matter how big of a hot streak Kevin Huerter gets on. You have to remember the downswings that Kevin Huerter goes through. And, we talk about you want to see this team become more consistent. Well, just one player, like in particular, has to become more consistent in Kevin Huerter. Like we saw what happened for the 6-week stretch last season. Same with Malik Monk, not just singling out Kevin Huerter here, because Malik Monk had the same exact thing last year. But then we saw what Kevin Huerter looked like in the playoffs. We saw what Kevin Huerter looked like in the first, say, 35 games of the season. Like 3 games or 5 games or 8 games of Kevin Huerter playing like he did for some little stretch that he did last season, it shouldn't really change your mind. Unless he's able to do it for like 2 years. I now have a track record of him having a downswing and knowing what that downswing looks like, and knowing that there's really very few things that you can do to get him out of that downswing. And so like that's a problem. You can't forget what happened in the playoffs and then go back and look at his previous 3 playoff series and go, "Oh, okay, that's a trend. That's not something that happened." And so, like, again, it's tough, but like at a certain point, if you're going to be a team that continues to take strides forward, you have to be honest about what your team is and who your players are. And you need to make sure that, you're not all in on De'Aaron Fox averaging 31 points a game. You can be all in on him averaging 27 or 25. 25 he's done a couple of times now. He's shown you that he can be that player where, I think that's the beauty of Domantas Sabonis. You know exactly what you're getting each and every night. Like there's a big Sharpie pen that you get to pencil in for that you get to pen in. You can even tattoo it in on what you're going to get from your center position. But all of these other players, they still
Empty
have their
calories.
variables. Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, to me, like, the empty calorie thing, you know what, like, at what point, because I know who said that, like, at what point does it your star player who scored, what, 33 points or whatever, dribbled the ball out of bounds to end the game, or gave the ball away to end the game. At what point do you say that, like, it doesn't matter how much Steph Curry averages, he's a good player on a bad team, or a great player on a bad team? Because to be honest with you, that's what he is at this point. Now, I'm not saying that Steph Curry's empty calories. I just don't believe that a guy who's an all NBA player, a guy who took a team to the playoffs for the first time in 16 years, is an empty calorie player. To me,
What was the new one? He's Troy Murphy?
Yeah, called him Troy Murphy.
yeah, that's it. It's just so disrespectful. It is. I mean, it's so disrespectful because you have a team that has an empty calorie player. And you could say whatever, like Steph Curry's one of the greatest players of all time, but man, Andrew Wiggins, all but like a 2-month period of his entire career, has been an empty calorie guy. He has. So, like, I don't know. It's tough. I wish people wouldn't use terms like that are so disrespectful, especially for a player who not only puts in the work, but has shown a level of consistency that is incredible. He finished 7th in MVP balloting last year. And if you look at the NBA ladder right now, he's 7th in their ranking for MVP. Like, this is an exceptional player who posts a double-double every single night and a triple-double every second or third night. Like, just don't be disrespectful. That's what I don't get. I mean, you're talking about a really, really good player on a really good team. And to me, that is just a joke.
We got James all fired up. I like it. Pissed off James Ham. We'll talk. A lot of Kings fans are going to be pissed off if the Kings lose tonight, because that injury report for the Memphis Grizzlies is wild. James is going to give us a breakdown on who exactly the Kings are playing tonight when D'Lo and KC return here. I'm being facetious. He's very not. We have no idea who they're playing tonight. Playing some sort of G League team, I think. It's D'Lo and KC, brought to you by Sky River Casino, where we will be on Friday. Yes. Live show, watch party, all the details coming up here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Get up for a second.
Yeah, that gets under my skin. Like, there are empty calorie players, right? There are some players who just play for bad teams and put up stats on bad teams. And to be honest with you, that's probably the concern you have about Kyle Kuzma, right? It's like, and it's a concern that I could even say that, outside of maybe one season of his career, you could say about Jeremy Grant. Like, Jeremy Grant's never put up good numbers on a winning team, except for 1 year in Denver, I think. So, yeah, it's tough.
Well, the thing that I talk about with guys like that all the time is like, I mean, like, what are you looking at Domantas Sabonis as being? If you're saying, if you're comparing him to Giannis and Jokic and saying, like, is he a top of the line, like, franchise player? That's debatable. And I could see where somebody doesn't believe in that. You know what I mean? Even whether you agree or not, if you think he is or you don't think he is, I can understand somebody who doesn't believe he's that. I can get that. But to say he's not an all-star or he's not one of the top, 25 to 30 players in this league, I mean, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous at this point. Like, he's absolutely verified and certified in those roles, and they don't even think he's that.
Yeah, they can keep thinking that. I don't know. At the end of the day, he's on a good team, and he's a big reason the team is good, and he's a centerpiece on the team. Like, Fox is the elite scorer, but he's the guy you're running the ball through every possession. So, yeah, Brian Cruz. That's my concern. Is Kuzma serious? And I get he signed back with Washington in the summer. He had options, including to go to Sacramento, and he chose to go back to that situation. And that, to me, is like a gigantic red flag. But at the same time, like, he didn't choose to go to a different bad team. He went back to the bad team he knew. And sometimes it's hard to look, see the forest through the trees. But also, I think sometimes it's like you're just looking at the opportunity and thinking that you can change things and all that. Like, if he would have chosen a worse team than the Kings, and it wasn't the team he was currently playing for, where he was comfortable and he played for a couple of years, I would give him more, like I would be on him more for being totally unserious. But I still
And,
think,
and let's just be, I'm not going to paint everybody with a broad brush, but this is what I believe. You guys are only saying these things about Kuzma because of how he dresses and comes into the arena. Because Jeremy Grant did the same thing, and nobody's calling him an unserious player. Portland, we all knew they were going to be ass, and he took the money and to stay in a bad situation. But we don't even know how he dressed, so we don't look at him as an unserious player. But Kyle Kuzma wears long sweaters and has dyed hair and goes back to a bad team, and we say he's unserious.
But look, Jeremy Grant also grew up there. That's like
Grew
his
up where?
dad.
Oh,
his dad played for Portland, right? So Harvey Grant played for Portland. Like you could see why there's a connection there, and why he might want to go back and play for that crowd. I get it.
He don't win either, though.
What's
Like, he unserious about winning. Is he wasn't going to win in Portland? I don't care if he had a house in the Rose Garden. He
Well,
wasn't
remember that he signed before they traded Damian Lillard, and before Damian Lillard demanded that he was made his demand to be traded. I agree with you.
He was going to be traded. We all knew he was going to be gone.
Yeah, but I think they were hoping to build the team around
him. Coming back, James. Y'all can keep fighting if you want to.
No fights.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I'm just defending the honor of Kyle Kuzma.
Well,
no, I mean, it's part of any equation. When you're going out and trading for players, you have to look at age, you have to look at contract, you have to look at potential fit. You also have to look at personality and how they might fit or how they might not, whether a player would be happy in your city, whether he wouldn't. These are all things that come into a larger puzzle that you have to figure out. And I don't think, that's kind of what we're debating. Like, some of these players, Kuzma decided to go sign a 4-year deal to go back to Washington, and maybe that's where he wants to play for the next 4 years. And Jeremy Grant, like, he has ties in Portland, and that's why he isn't saying, hey, go ahead and get me out of here right now. So it's all complex. Like, it's not just as cut and dry as hopping on the trade machine.
Very true.
We're going to be live out at Sky River Casino this Friday. If you want to come through, the show will be live from 12 to 4. Then we're going to hang around because there's a game at 4:30. The Sacramento
Tyrese might be back.
It looks like Tyrese and Pascal Siakam could be on the other end of the floor for the first time for the Sacramento Kings. Of course, it didn't matter the last time. They lost anyways. So they're due for some revenge this time in Indiana. It was a different Kings team.
Just a different Kings.
Same exact guys.
Yeah, just a different team.
Different
it was only
team.
A week ago, too.
A week and a half ago. Like 10 days ago. Totally different team.
You could make an argument. That was the game that put us in the position we are in now, because that was the game that Keegan Murray had 27, Domantas Sabonis had 21, Kevin Huerter had 31, De'Aaron Fox had 24, and Harrison had 2. He had 2, 1, and 1. He was 1 of 2, and since then, he scored 90 some odd points in the last 3 games.
6'6" out of North Carolina.
6'6".
What is he, 6'8" or something, man? Yeah.
6'8".
Just kind of half smiling to giving. Guys are talking now, doing post game, talking to Sean Cunningham, talking to the reporters. Just everything is fine.
Everything is awesome.
Of course, vibes could die quick tonight against whatever these Memphis Grizzlies are marching out there.
But James, I pointed this out earlier when we were talking about this, and it does seem I was the first one to say it here before not
obviously.
in the world, but just on the show. Like I said it first that this looks like a completely different team, right? So I said that, but you could make the argument. Aside from 2 or 3 games, a game here or there, they've been playing good basketball for almost like 3 weeks now. And
Philly and Indiana were
Philly and Indiana are the ones that stick out. But and then you lost against Milwaukee, you lost against Phoenix, but I thought you played good basketball. So is all of this kind of been overblown in your eyes? Have they been trending up for a while, but maybe didn't have the wins to go with it? But now they've got the wins, and it just feels a little different.
I don't know if a while is the right answer, because let's be honest, like Philly played without Embiid, and Indiana played without Tyrese Halliburton, and they had like 8 other players that were like part of a trade and couldn't play. So like those are very unserious losses. Where you're just looking around like how could you let that happen? Like Philly, sure, Philly's still a good team, but like is really Tobias Harris that good of a player? I mean, throughout his career, he's been a solid NBA player, but he's not an all-star. And you let him go out there and look, like Paul George on steroids. So I don't know. It's tough because I look at those losses, the 3 losses in a row outside of the Milwaukee, I mean the Philly loss, and to me, those were really important losses. They were losses in which you were trying to figure out again how to win games and win games in a serious fashion, not win games by 15 or 20. And you can look at the league this year. The league is weird. Like whatever is happening in the league, I'm not sure, but like every single night there are 5 or 6 teams that are scoring 130 points.
Yeah.
And that's just, you look at the offensive ratings, and again, the Kings would be like last year's, offensive rating would be like 7th in the league right now. And of course, it was the record setting offensive rating. But then you look at the defensive ratings, and the defensive ratings across the board are just horrific. There's like a couple of teams playing defense in the league. And even the team that has played defense, Minnesota, they just got called out for losing to Charlotte by their head coach because they were unserious and just sat there and tricked off a game where one of their players scored 60 something, was hunting shots. So like I just think the league is weird and odd. And what you have to do is when the league gets wonky and crazy like this, you need to find a way to be like steady and just keep climbing and ignore everything else that's happening. And I'm hoping that that's where the Kings are right now. But to be honest with you, I have no idea. Like any game could be a step back game. You talked about what they're going to face tonight. Like they have no idea. Like outside of Jaren Jackson Jr., which I think you can take him away, or you can just dare him to try to beat you from the 3-point line. The rest of this team is just odd. I mean, they started like a power forward at point guard last game, and a small forward at shooting guard. And then both of those players are either questionable or doubtful for tonight. So like there is no rhyme or reason. This team is a mess as far as Memphis. You have no idea. But the fact is, if the Kings go in and just play Kings basketball and forget about everything else that you're seeing on the other side of the court, just be who you are, you should beat this team by 50. This isn't an NBA team right now. Like, not to be disrespectful to some of these guys, but like they're either signed off the street or they're two-way players or something else. And like they might have 2 rotational NBA players that play tonight. That's a team you have to just you have to dominate them so badly that it doesn't even matter. That the game's over in the third quarter, in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the third quarter, where you say, nope, we're not going to let you make any run and it's over. But who shows up and who doesn't? That's the question with this Kings team. And, if you don't, this team can bite you. They barely lost last night by 6 points in Indiana. But third game, 4 nights, second night of a back-to-back, half of their players are out. Actually, it's more. It's 10 players are out. They had to sign a guy off the street this afternoon just to get to 8. That's crazy.
That is.
Am I bugging him? The Kings last now 4 opponents been on the second night of a back-to-back? Maybe Atlanta wasn't. Golden State was.
Yeah.
Dallas was.
Yeah.
And now Memphis is?
Atlanta was. I thought.
Were they?
I can't remember where they played. Did they play in
Probably
Phoenix
would have been
before?
Golden State, wouldn't it? I don't know.
No,
But
they played in Gold. That was Golden State's back to back.
that's right.
They played
Yeah,
them.
that's right. Yep.
Maybe
You're
they
right.
weren't on the back to back.
Well, it's I don't know. That doesn't mean anything. That's just an interesting scheduling quirk.
I gotta find a way to make that a negative for the Kings to say the NBA hates them. Give me a
Work on it. That's fine.
Give me a second.
You
I
can
gotta
work on it.
find a way.
Hey, Memphis they're 18-26. They're way better than I thought they would be at this point with all of
Well, they got some of those wins with Ja.
Yeah.
Like they went on
They won like 4.
They look
5
like
or 6 games.
Yeah, they look like a legit
Yeah.
basketball team when Ja Morant returned.
And then all the wheels fell off.
Yeah, and then it just got bad.
One of their losses with Ja was to the Kings. Kings beat them down in Memphis on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So they need to do more of the same here tonight.
Back to New Year's Eve. That was a Malik Monk game. De'Aaron Fox had 24 in that one. You think I speculated whether De'Aaron maybe lost his what was already kind of a sketchy all-star nod over that like tough stretch, but he's back to playing. I have no idea when the coaches make these selections, but I do know they will be announced on Thursday. Do you think one king gets named, 2 kings get named, 0 kings get named? What do you think happens on Thursday when the all-star reserves are announced?
I think at least one, but I also think there's possibility for both. So like I think the balloting didn't have to be in until today, either today or yesterday, for these players. So like I think that there's a possibility that they get both, because if I'm looking at the top teams in the West, right, I could make the case that the Kings' big two is as good or better than most of the other teams' big twos. Like there's no one you're going to put in the All-Star game along with Jokic, right? And Anthony Edwards deserves to make the All-Star team, but Cat statistically really take him up against not only Sabonis but Anthony Davis and like a bunch of other players. And I don't think he's there statistically. You get to Anthony Davis. LeBron James is already in the All-Star game. Anthony Davis is on a losing team or a team that's not very good right now at the bottom of the Western Conference. So my point is that, like, again, Kyrie and Luka, you can't give it to Kyrie because Kyrie has missed so many games. It's ridiculous. Steph Curry's going to get in, but like how many of these other players are just going to get like a free pass? I think Kawhi Leonard gets in, but does Kawhi Leonard and Paul George get in? So I think that the Kings tandem is really strong. If you're really looking at, like, you got a guy who's averaging 27.5 a game, and on paper that should get him either in the All-Star game or really close to it. And you could say, oh, well, Devin Booker didn't get in last year and you should make up for it this year. Well, they already have the representation in KD. And the Kings are above Phoenix in the standings, although it's slightly above. And I think raw stats wise, Fox and Booker are very similar. So like I could make the case for both of them getting in. I think if I think one of them is going to get in and the other one's not, that was kind of weird because like I would not have thought this before, but I think Fox gets in because I think the voters, they understand that they didn't vote him in last year. And he was an injury replacement and probably deserved to be there. But I also know that Sabonis was a third-team All-NBA player and Fox was a third-team All-NBA player, and they haven't gotten worse; they've gotten better. And their team is the exact same as it was last year. Like where they're at in the standings, exactly the same. And after tonight, there's a good chance they'll be one game ahead where they were last year. So I think that there is a possibility they both get in.
Sky River Casino, Friday, February 2nd, live show, followed by a watch party. I bring that up because on that show, we will have a discussion of some sort because the All-Star reserves are announced February 1st. So
indeed,
we'll figure it out at that point. We'll either be celebrating 2 or 1 or complaining about none or 1.
And I think that, people talk about Book missing last year's. De'Aaron was an add-on last year, and it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that, except for the fact he shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
with all due respect to Jaren Jackson Jr., Jaren Jackson Jr. should have been the add-on. And I felt like that was the coach's, we've got to account for defense. Yeah, okay. Explain what we're seeing in the league this year if you guys are trying to, well, we've got to reward defense somewhere because none of you hoes are playing it.
Well, well, that goes to what James just said.
Hell, Adrian Griffin got fired at 30-13 because his team said he wasn't playing defense enough.
Yeah, but that may go to what James was just talking about, possibly, where they may look at somebody like Rudy Gobert and put him on there ahead of Sabonis. Should they? Absolutely not. But
there's just no buzz.
I didn't think there was buzz for Jaren Jackson.
Who wanted
to see him in the NBA?
That was an RKO out of nowhere. Nobody asked for that.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
I mean, Sabonis clearly should be on there ahead of Rudy Gobert, but sometimes these guys see the game different. Man.
He should be on there above Anthony Davis. But that's what we're like. They're gonna keep Anthony Davis out of the All-Star game?
Probably not.
They probably should. I mean, just look at the record, look at where they are in the standings, and again, you have representation. Like LeBron's there. Why do you need to add another player?
Oh, hey, look, and the elephant in the room, we talked about it a little bit. I'm not advocating for it, but the elephant in the room, Steph Curry shouldn't make the All-Star team. Now he will, and he's Steph Curry. The reason why he's making it is because he's Steph Curry. He's not having a better season than De'Aaron Fox.
I don't think he is either.
But I think he would make
19 and 24.
You're probably right.
I don't think he's having a better season than Ant-Man. I don't think he's having a better season.
Ant-Man's going to make it.
Than
Booker.
That's the one. I don't care about Booker. That's the one where you're always just going to hang me up.
But he'll make it, and he's Steph Curry, so I have no problem with it. But
Steph did have 46 the other night. Goodness gracious.
Oh, Booker had 63.
I know. They both lost. Yeah. But that's not even what I went to look at. I was like, what did Anthony Davis do in that game? Yeah, 29 and 13. Taurean Prince had 0.
They played almost 2 games.
0. Well, he only played 24 minutes in those games, and Jared Vanderbilt very famously played in that one as he was the ire of Draymond Green's antics, who, say it again, Draymond ain't going to make it.
Draymond beat the hell out of Anthony Davis. It was like, ain't nothing to look at.
Draymond getting suspended.
Smack the hell out of this dude.
So Draymond's new thing is, I don't know if you've caught this because he did it to Malik. His new thing is to foul you hella hard and then pat your ass. That's his new thing. That's what he does to, hey, I'm cool. I just punched Anthony Davis, the guy who I share an agent with, in the freaking face, but I'm going to pat him on the ass and everything's going to be fine. He did the same thing to Malik Monk.
Yeah, he's been serially doing it. That's his thing.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. That's a good call. That's what he's doing.
I think they taught that in anger management.
That's what it is. Hey,
the anger management ass pat.
Yep, that's the anger management ass pat. That's what it is.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. Now, I don't know. Even Doris Burke was like, "That's a flagrant foul.
It's clear as day.
You can't hit a player in the face.
Just beat the hell out of him.
That's facts. It's hilarious. You see him. He'll go and he'll swing, like just clothesline you in the face, and then he'll pat you on your ass, like, "Oh, my bad, bro." And it's just, we're good.
No, he doesn't even say my bad. I'll just, the foul.
The funny thing about that is he had the nerve, the audacity to mock Jared Vanderbilt, was like, hey, you need to look at that. Oh, yeah, go look at that. Like I did anything to him. Bro, you beat the crap out of him.
I cannot stand that human being. He is the absolute worst. He is the Golden State Warriors should be embarrassed. Like, he's an embarrassment to that basketball team. You got Steph Curry trying to drag your sorry carcass to a respectable season, and you got that jackass out there. Unbelievable.
Oh, man.
James, who the hell are these guys on the Memphis Grizzlies?
Man, I don't know. At all. Like, we went through the list today, and Kyle and I, and it's like they have 2 of their top 12 guys in minutes played. So John Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, Zaire Williamson, John Concar, Derrick Rose, Jalen Noel is no longer there. Jake LaRavia, all those guys are out. Bismack Biyombo was waived. I think Kenny Lofton Jr. was waived at some point. So we're going to get to see Vince Williams Jr.
The league just submitted the Grizzlies just submitted a request. We changed our mind about Bismack Biyombo. Can you send him back to Memphis for a night?
That's right. Santi Aldama will play.
Oh,
Xavier Tillman. Tillman. Yeah, he'll play. Jalen Noel is on the Stockton Kings, so he won't be there. Jacob Gilliard will play. Scottie Pippen Jr. will play. Greg Jackson II. Not to be confused.
Scottie Pippen Jr. has played 3 games this year, just for those.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, that and Greg Jackson II, Gregory Jackson II, not to be confused with Greg Jackson Sr., which who knows who that is. But
I didn't, I wasn't sure at first. Thank you.
Yeah, like I mean, none of these players have played, so I mean, there is a little bit of a danger. And
did you say Gregory Jackson Jr.? He's not even on their ESPN roster.
Yeah, Gregory Jackson II.
Yeah, he's not on their roster. He's not on their ESPN roster.
I believe he played last night. But again,
they just haven't taken the time to add him to this.
What's the team, the G League team, the 66ers or the Spirit of 66 or something? Or the
Memphis Hustle.
Memphis Hustle, yeah.
That's who the Kings are going against tonight. No disrespect. It just is what it is. They all play for the hustle. So they better figure out a way.
Is Shaquille Harrison playing tonight?
No, I don't think he's there anymore.
Oh, Shaquille Harrison.
Shaq
Are you
Harrison?
kidding me?
Oh.
Shaq Harrison?
One of the Harrison brothers.
Jack Harrison has played 3 games this year, sir. He's averaged 2 minutes in those 3 games.
I just think it's crazy that,
well,
last night they had John Concar and David Roddy as their starting backcourt. And one of those guys, again, is a power forward.
None of these names are on ESPN page. None of them. There's John Concar. There he is.
All right. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like again, they had to pick up a guy, and they had to pick up a guy. I don't even know who this guy is at all, just to get to 8 tonight. So, yeah, Jared Jackson Jr. is playing.
Yeah, man, y'all gotta handle business here tonight.
Yeah, and just preferably, I know how you guys are sometimes. Don't let this be particularly close either. Just
no
business.
Please do that.
Handle business.
Harrison, go for 40.
Well, that's a given.
And then, maybe we can get some, Keon Ellis minutes or Kobe Jones or something, and
Kessler get back in there.
Yeah, I don't care. Just don't do the thing that you do.
6'8"
please,
from North Carolina.
Don't do the things.
We'll set Harrison Barnes over under at 12 points today. Is he going over or under today?
Over.
Over.
Going over.
James?
Wow.
Over.
I would have never said that 14.
Over, I believe.
Wow, we're all taking the over.
Harrison's back.
No player in the starting lineup scored under 15 on Saturday.
Harrison's back. He's back.
Back to what?
If he scores, let's say,
life.
Serious question. If he scores like 15 to 20 again today, or like decent amount today, like you guys like thinking like they got him back, like
I don't know, Jesse. I have no clue.
I'm just trying to produce. We got.
I have no
left.
idea. I have no idea
just
what
trying
we do
to produce.
I have no idea what we do if Harrison Barnes scores 20 again.
I
don't even know what to say tomorrow if they win this game.
He's back to civilization.
All right.
He was at Burning Man for half the year.
Are you taking the over?
I'm feeling kind of under. I don't know. You can't trust this guy. I'm gonna go under today.
It's a trap, Harrison.
I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna go under.
You're
going under 12.
Under 12.
Oh, he's calling the trap.
So we got to put
wrong,
it.
Harrison.
We got to put it at 12.5. So you're going under
12.5.
Okay.
I'm calling it a trend.
Okay.
You got this, Harrison.
We're going over to 102.5 if you want to come join us. We've got a lot going on over there, including tickets to see Justin Timberlake and Bruce. And then we'll be back tomorrow. Oh, man. It's either going to be a seismic meltdown or we'll be talking about the Kings' 4th straight victory. Make sure you're tapped in beginning at 10 a.m. with the Insiders.
By the way, the Kings are going to the 49ers are going to the Super Bowl.
Really?
Yes.
I'll have to run that first segment of this show back just